Hey, listeners, thanks for tuning into the podcast. I just want to take a moment to mention the podcast sponsor, retrogamestore.com.au. Head over there for all your Game Boy refurbish and repair needs. Screens, shells, buttons, and all the bits and pieces. And there's a complete custom build made to order service as well. Also, plenty more retro gaming goodness like video cables, display stand and power supplies, controls, etc. And you can add the code PixelPie at checkout to get 10% off your order. Also, take a moment to say if you enjoyed this episode and haven't already, give it a subscribe or follow and a review where you can. And maybe you want to recommend the Pixel Pie podcast to anyone you know that would enjoy it. That'd be really appreciated. So thanks for listening, and now let's get on with the show.
Hey, this is Tris from Custom.Handhelds, and this is the Pixel Pie podcast.
G'day, Tristan. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, pretty good, Scott. How are you, mate?
I am very, very, very well. And I'm really glad that you and I finally got to sit down and talk in this way on the podcast. We've met several times. You actually live less than a kilometer. We live a kilometer apart, don't we?
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
It's kind of weird because I felt like the only Game Boy player in the village sort of thing, which is, we don't live in a village, we live in a city with suburbs. But then I kind of put two and two together and I'm like, hey, buddy, do you live in Brisbane? And your response was like, yes. And I'm like, what suburb? You told me your suburb. I was like, no way. What street? Oh my God. And like that, I think it was like the next day you came over and we had a drink and we kind of just caught up and went crazy about Game Boy. So it was a really joyful experience to meet someone, another human.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty surreal, especially the fact that we live in such a close area too, and knowing that we can always just, go over and just chill and play games if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's such a unique sort of finite community that two of us should live so close together is bonkers.
Yeah.
And there's a few of us. There's Gav, Nostek, and we've had Mike over a bit, but yeah, Nostek, he's only 15 minutes from our house as well. So
yeah.
And we've caught up before. We went to the library and played a bunch of Mega Drive Bomberman, and I was talking to Gav the other day, and it was like, was it my D-pad? Do you remember that?
Yeah. That was in the what was it, the Markiplier giveaway that he's doing at the moment, and everyone has to do like friendly banter,
right.
And that was one that Will, aka Baron Friesman, said, and I just died. It was just hilarious.
Yeah. That was you. It was Bomberman 94 on Mega Drive, and you and Gav, aka Nozdek, were going hard at it, and there's a funky kind of way you turn, and sometimes it doesn't quite turn around the corner, and you squealed out, my D-pad, and I think you were taken down, but that was fun.
Yeah, probably.
Anyways, so yeah, like I've sort of alluded to, you're an Australian-based Game Boy collector, modder. You mod for joy, you mod for pleasure, you also mod to move them on to other people. Let's talk, I guess, maybe in the beginning. Now, you're in Australia, but you obviously have some heritage from another country like the UK. Maybe just take us through sort of growing up, mate. Like, what got you into Game Boys and other console? I know you're a GameCube lover. You and I have that in common. Yeah, and just sort of take us down that journey, and we'll get to where we are now at some point.
Well, so I was born on the Isle of Wight, so a tiny little island off the south coast of England, and moved over to Australia when I was about 6 months old.
Right.
So I've pretty much grown up here my whole life.
Okay.
And my first gaming memory was actually a Commodore 64. It was one that my dad had, and I was playing Speedball. And I loved that.
I have the same memory, not with your dad, obviously, but I have the same memory playing Speedball on a C64. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic game, and it's something that eventually I'd love to get. But my first console I actually had was a Game Boy Advance, and I had that with the Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Finding Nemo, and Pokemon Ruby. And
it's a pretty good mix, huh?
Hours on that. Oh man, those games are incredible even now. I love replaying them. They're
Yeah,
really
yeah,
good.
yeah. And like with an IPS now, so it's even better.
Oh yeah, you can actually see the screen now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So this was in Australia. At what age would you roughly have been when you sort of got in possession of that?
I reckon about 8. That's what I remember as being about the time of that. And before then was the Commodore 64, and we borrowed a SNES off friends. So I was playing like Dr. Mario and
Yeah,
loved that so much.
yeah, yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, and so you kind of the GBA kept you going for a few years. I mean, the sort
Mm,
of some stories is like, look, I just had game from the beginning and I just
mhm,
managed to hang on and life was good. Or did you sort
mhm,
of spend some time at uni and it was sort of like a few flat spots and you came back to it when you kind of had an adult
mhm,
income and things like that? How'd
mhm,
that go for
mhm.
you?
So I guess like I collected Game Boy Advance quite a lot through a lot of my birthday presents and saving money.
Yeah.
I've got a fond memory of literally the first time I ever withdrew money from the bank was to buy Banjo Kazooie, Grunty's Revenge for the Game Boy Advance, and
Yeah,
I've still
wicked.
got it.
Oh,
It's
good.
all boxed up and everything. I love
Oh,
that
wow.
game,
That is so
and
good.
it's just a strange memory, you know. And I did have a PS2, so I did love the like Ratchet and Clank, and I played a lot of Gran Turismo as well.
Yep.
I
Yep.
played just a lot of different games there. I
Yeah, right.
moved on to like the Game Boy Advance SP when that came out, and that light was like amazing. And
Right.
now looking at it, I'm like, that art is trash because it's so bad to
Yeah.
try and see your game.
Did you have a
Pretty
001
washed
or a
out.
101?
001,
Yeah,
001.
yeah. So it was pretty bad even then. Like, was it much
Yeah,
different? Was it much different to the GBA, or was it like
it
more or
was
less the
better.
same? Yeah,
It
right.
was better, but I remember during the day I'd actually just turn off the backlight or the front light so that I could save battery.
Yeah, yeah. Because what's the point?
But
It wasn't really
yeah,
giving you much. Yeah.
pretty much. And then I went on to like the Nintendo DS, and I've always had some sort of Nintendo console because
Mm,
we've always had a PlayStation as well. We've had a PlayStation 3 and a PS4 and a
yeah,
PSP,
yeah,
and I've now
yeah.
got a Vita.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but my brother and I saved up money one Christmas, and my parents put the rest in, and we bought a Nintendo Wii. And that was something that was incredible for us because we were like,
Yeah,
wow, this is our own game system that we've purchased and
yeah,
had all the Mario games, and now I've
yeah.
inherited it and gotten a few other games too.
Mm,
So
good job.
yeah.
Yeah, we've had a Wii since I think we were given it by my parents-in-law before my daughter was born. She's 9, so about
Mm,
10, 11 years. We would have been late to it
mm,
and
mm,
stuff, but for my wife and
mm.
I. And yeah, I
Yep.
mean, it's my father-in-law and I, we've played Wii Sports, we sit there and play the kind of
Hmm.
frisbee golf and
Hmm.
things like
Hmm.
that. And then when my daughter came along, Mario Kart on the Wii was just the way you control it by steering, moving the thing
Mm,
was, and it's one of those things I can see why it didn't do so great, but for
yeah.
anybody that really understood it and got into it, it's certainly it's probably in my life because I didn't get into gaming too much later. It's probably the Wii
Mm,
is the console that I will look back and go, I enjoyed that, even though I was 35 when I got it,
mm,
sort of thing. We
mm.
just recently picked up a Wii U, which I've jailbroken and loaded up, and
Nice.
it's gorgeous. Like I see why people love the Switch because it's the next step.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
it's gorgeous. Yeah, just I could go on for hours about the Wii U
Oh,
at
the
the
Wii is
moment.
great.
Yeah,
And I
really good.
remember, because you mentioned your love for the GameCube and mine as well. I got into the GameCube about 5 years ago, so I was
Right.
incredibly late to it. But it was
Yeah.
one of those consoles that I remember going, "Oh, I'd love that."
Yeah.
And now I've built quite a good, decent library around that. I've got the Game Boy player too, which is one of the best things I've ever got on
Do
my
you have the
collection.
disc for it?
Yep,
Oh
absolutely.
man, you're a good egg.
Yeah,
Yeah, well
yeah,
done.
yeah. But I know you can actually bypass that pretty easily. I think there's
Mm,
like there's a James Bond, I want to say Nightfire, that you put in
yeah.
for a second and take out. It's like a hot swap,
Yeah,
and
there
then you
is
can
something about that, isn't
replay
there?
to it.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty good. It's one of my favorite retro consoles for sure.
Yeah. So what is the what particularly on the GameCube do you sort of play when you sit down?
Double Dash for sure. It is
Yeah.
the best Mario Kart racer. That's why we've got that as the next thing that I'm going to try and play with you guys.
Yeah, yeah. When we
Uh,
catch up next time at the library, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I
And
picked
another
up.
thing for me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
go on, go on.
Oh yeah, so Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. That is a game for me that I'm so lucky to get, and it is just the best, probably the
Really,
best RPG I've ever played.
really. It's a lot of Pokemon on your Instagram. For those that are listening, it's also good if you kind of flick through Tristan's Instagram, because I'll refer to it a fair bit. There's quite a bit of Pokemon. It seems to be just typical. If you're into Game Boys, then if a person said to me, I really love Game Boys, but I can't stand Pokemon, I'd be like, I don't know that you know what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that. Pokemon for me is been something I grew up with, and now it's still something I love. I got the new one when it came out on the Switch. I still haven't got Pokemon Snap, but I do intend on getting that soon for the Switch.
Yeah. So would you call yourself like there's modders and there's collectors, but some people have a bit of modding and a bit of collecting. Putting the modding aside, would you still call yourself a collector?
No, definitely. I've got quite a bit of stuff that I love in my collection. Just like box stuff that I've picked up and stuff over years.
Yeah.
I really got back into Game Boys the moment I was probably 17 or 18, because then I started getting an income that I could actually buy some of the nice things I wasn't able to afford growing up.
Yeah, sure. And what sort of these days, as an adult with an adult income, unfortunately, you have adult like overheads, but you still have some income, and you have, or more importantly, you have the choice. What are the sort of things that you spend your hard-earned money on to collect?
Oh, well, it depends. For me, some of it is just like getting stuff printed for my own collection. Like I've got a few shells I've done recently with Player Wave. One's like a Galaxy Star, the other's a Voltorb. Then there's like, I guess like the lenses that I've done. So one of my favorite builds that I've got is a Kirby shell. It's for Game Boy Color with the OSD Q5 display. I designed a Kirby lens to go with that one. It uses James E. Play's Kirby shell and the Jesse pocket rocks from yesterday's tech as well. Awesome. It's amazing. I love it so much, and it's one of those things that I just love, it
is a beautiful shell. It is amazing when you've got all these, if you want to customize something, you kind of, I don't know, say you got your car and you're going to put this in it, these shocks and this exhaust and that stereo, it's all good and fine. This is a very different object, but to take all of these different, you just said a shell from Jamesy, you designed the lens and had it printed. The shell was printed by Player Wave, and then you had the buttons from yesterday's tech. Like, these people.
Yeah, that's
and
pretty cool.
The joy of sort of taking it's a bit like living in a big kind of Game Boy village, and you get the carrots from the lady on the corner, and you get the potatoes from the bloke beside the post office, and then in the end you've got this beautiful stew that lasts you a long time. It's
very fortunate for that.
We are. As far as sort of building and modding goes, do you have do you sort of get drawn towards a particular model of the Game Boy, or are you more than happy just to dive into whatever?
My favorite is definitely the Game Boy Advance.
Right.
Just because it's got that factor for me, is that was the first Game Boy that I owned.
Of course.
So it's always going to be the one that I love the most. And I've got a few around here, but for some reason or somehow, I've ended up collecting more boxed Game Boy Colors than anything. But build wise, Game Boy Advance is always the best. It's pretty simple builds. All the soldering, everything like that. You don't even have to have a brain to do it, to be honest. It's my favorite because there's also so much that you can replace in it to bring it into something that you're proud of the end product with, like triggers, capacitors,
to truly refurbish it.
Speakers. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I felt really inspired by Recon for Gamers. So James, lovely bloke. And he's really put me on that kind of path of pushing myself to do the best I can with every build that I do.
I was looking at one of your recent posts there, and you've got the board of the GBA out all clean and ready to go, and you're talking about, the speakers and micro switches and battery terminals, and, these are, all you got to do is start replacing all the caps, and you're like if Recon was Darth Maul, then you'd be the Sith's apprentice right there, wouldn't you?
Well, and I've just started doing caps, so
well, there you go. Darth Triss. Enjoy.
I'll take that. I'll take
Yeah,
that. Maybe
that's
that'll be my
good.
Halloween costume this year.
Maybe, but instead of like a lightsaber, you have like a soldering iron, with the glowing red hot sort of thing.
Yeah,
Mm.
accidentally like get some lead on me from my
Yeah, or
soldering
maybe
iron and
burn your
stuff.
face with a bit of solder and stuff. Go hardcore. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You talked before about the printing of lenses and shells, and I guess for
Mm,
some people that seems like some people, obviously a few people I've interviewed had on the show as guests have been through the experience. Can you sort of take it? Because I think one thing I'd like to sort of get from you, and I think maybe some people don't appreciate, they might be on the cusp of, oh, I've done a couple of builds and I've sort of sold them on eBay, or I've done this, I've done that. But I think you're really putting a lot of your time and energy and sort of emotion into making this something that you can kind of, that can be more than just a hobby. And we know a few people that are really doing really well at that. And it does take
mm,
quite a lot of work. But some people
mm,
probably don't quite realize that there's more to just buying a bunch of Game Boys, buying a bunch of shells and screens, slapping them together and putting them on
mm.
some sort of marketplace, because you have challenges,
Yeah.
Etsy stores, you have
Hmm.
suppliers. There's a new
Hmm.
screen every freaking 3 weeks. You might buy a bunch of shells from some Chinese producer on eBay and go, they are great, but you'll never buy them again because
Mm,
they only
mm.
put out 7,000 and they all got sold in a week, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So maybe just from the beginning of when you went, I'm going to give this a go, give us an idea of what it
Mm,
really takes to kind of feel that,
mm.
hey, I'm doing it and this is not a waste of my time and money.
Yeah, well,
It's a big
I guess
question,
like
but
I
take your
was
time.
no, that's fair. It's definitely been a lot of work, and it's something that my partner really supported me through.
Mhm.
Um, so I decided to start everything just because I love soldering and I love working on Game Boys. And it
Mm.
finally came to a point for me that I felt confident in being able to produce something that I would be proud of with
Mm.
all the mod kits coming out, like the
Mm.
screens and everything like that. That install is very simple
Yep.
compared to what it used to be, where you have to remove like the polarizing lens and then you put the backlight on there.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a tricky one.
yeah,
You've done a like a backlight with a bivert and a DMG.
oh no, I don't know if I would have the patience for that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's worth your while. I mean, if it's something
Mm,
like, because you're like, oh, I don't have anything to do, but if you don't have anything
mm,
to do,
mm,
it's not as challenging as one would think, but it definitely does
mm,
take.
mm.
The bivert's not too hard if you can solder. You just got to
Yeah,
make sure you sort of
yeah,
flush. But yeah, I was pretty nervous because you're just going to wreck it if you don't just mess it up a bit. But yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And you do
Um,
deface,
mhm.
destroy that front board. Well, it's
Oh yeah.
irreversible. That's what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I guess like from there, I started my shop. So I've got a shop on Shopify, and
Yeah.
I've kind of always been going through that because I looked at eBay for ages, and I just kind of looked through and I was like, those fees are killer. Like, there's no way that I'd be able to sell something at an affordable price and still make enough for me to be happy with it as
Is that
well.
on eBay?
Um, yeah, yeah, it's absolutely killer, and it's
Is it?
why some
Is it? Can
people
you give us like a
that I've talked
percentage
to,
or something that in the
uh,
ballpark?
I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, but I know a few modders have literally stepped away from sites like eBay
Yeah.
because of the fees that they're incredibly expensive.
Really?
Um,
I've only ever
but
bought. I've never sold
mm,
anything. So I'm like, I don't know what you're whinging about. I always get what I want.
yeah, I mean, when I was in the UK, it was so much cheaper,
Right.
which was amazing. Like, it wasn't expensive, and that's how I made a bit of extra money with
Hmm.
my like spare cash. But yeah, and I guess like from there I started my shop on Shopify. I worked through there, and I've got my customizer, and that's something that I was still am very proud of, that I was
Mm.
doing. So I wanted
What's
to
the
set out to
customizer?
be different. So the customizer is pretty much like a page on my site where you can pick up all the different parts you want in your build,
Mm.
and bring them together. So my main one that's on there at the moment, I don't have any others because the fees were killer, but I've got one that's a Game Boy Advance,
Hmm.
and you can choose buttons,
Yep.
lens,
Mm.
rubber. You like rubber pads. You can choose the shells. I'm gonna bring back like lithium polymer batteries and
Hmm.
also speaker mods and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, something for me about that is it's nice to have something that until then no one else had done. Um, like I couldn't find it anywhere that anyone else was doing it in a way, and if they had, it
Mm.
was just like a drop down menu and there was no
Mm.
visual
Right.
effects.
It's a great idea.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be able to see that, and I've done a lot of work in Photoshop over the last like 8 years, something like that. And I've got a really nice camera, so I decided, hey, look, I'm just going to set this up in my photography studio, do a few different builds, like one that's clear, one that's white, so that I can get the different colors easily as well. And then, yeah, kind of Photoshop it through, and it's pretty difficult. The amount of time it goes into just that one customizer, I would say easily over 20 hours of work.
Yeah.
You
Just
know,
getting all your
including
stock
everything.
sort of photos and everything together and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And something I really want to do.
Yeah, no, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, something I really want to do next is going to be offering shells and stuff like that, like custom shells that have been done. I'm working on buttons, and buttons is something that I was incredibly inspired by Sam from Yesterday's Tech. He's just a god at casting, and has been very, very helpful. And same as Neo's customs. A lot of that work has been so helpful because they've been really willing to help me out and provide some answers. Like without that, I wouldn't have my pressure pot that looks scary.
It does look, I've mentioned it before. It does. I mean, you guys are used to it. It's just an unfamiliar piece of equipment to me. I look at it and sort of go, man, which Russian submarine did you steal that off? Like,
yeah, and then Sam was psyching me out when I first got that because he's like, "Oh, it's gonna blow up on you." I'm like, "No." And then,
shut up.
For the first probably 2 months of me casting, I had some underlay, and I put the underlay as a shield. So I put that in front of me just in case the pressure pot exploded.
Yeah. I get like a catcher's net sort of thing or something.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But that was funny.
We'll go more into the casting because I do want to sort of get your side of it and how you've sort of approached it. One thing I do want to say just before, because I'm sort of looking at stuff here, and it's like the crystal clear Super Famicom GBA that you had up for sale and I know, was that the one you had last time we all met up at the library?
Absolutely, man.
And I was like, if he leaves that behind and forgets about it, he's not getting it back. I'll just say, no,
pocket.
I didn't see it. And then I'm going to hide it every time he comes over to visit.
Yeah, 5-finger discount.
It really, yeah. I really just, I wasn't able to buy into it until I saw it. And I was like, it really is. Those clear shells really are gorgeous. I'm the sort of Game Boy player where I don't like to be distracted. I mean, even with my TV, I have to put a bit of red tape over the little red LED in the corner. I don't need distractions. My little mind just wanders off. And I was afraid looking at that, I'd be just looking at the guts all the time. But no, it's super gorgeous. There was a great build. And thank you for making me want another thing.
No worries, man. Thank you. Because it's it's a lot of love that goes into those, and that Famicom lens. I've actually designed a lens like that now, and that's for the Game Boy Color OSD-Q5.
Right.
You may have seen it. I did a post today about it, and it's me at Picnic Point in Toowoomba. So I've just been away for Toowoomba for a weekend.
Is that what that is?
Yes, and that's a completely custom lens that I did. They did have them previously for the different sizes of Game Boy Color lenses, but there hadn't been one released yet. And I was like, well, I really want to do this build, and so I did that. I slided into Nat's Natalie the Nerd's DMs for some custom LEDs. So that's a custom LED board there,
right?
And yeah, it shows you what the Famicom colors would be like on the Game Boy Color.
So you got one of Nat's boards behind those clear buttons.
Yeah, and there should be a picture up somewhere in Insta that has that properly. It's just such a lovely color.
That's cool. Oh yeah, I see the blue D-pad and the yellow and red A and B and the green start. Yeah, man, that's cool as heck.
It's so cool.
Good
job.
She
did a really good job with that, like just seeing that is incredible. And that's one of the things I've done. So I've been getting into lens designing. So
and how does that work? Like do you sort of run templates and just slide stuff around in Photoshop? I mean, I'm just asking because I have no idea. And then where do you go to get lenses printed?
So it starts out for me, I use Photoshop but at the start, so I can prototype the design because I find it a lot easier for me to run something quickly through Photoshop, as opposed to Illustrator, because I'm not incredibly like well versed in Illustrator yet.
Right.
But what I'll do is I'll have a look at something, and let's just say like my Kirby one, it's pink. I was like, okay, let's see what James's shell is like, because that's literally the reason I've done that lens, is because I wanted it to complement his shell. I was like, what's a pink that would work well with the shell? And I've got the text. Then I've got Kirby is a little pixel art that actually Craig from Retro Game Store helped me rework because I didn't know how to at the time.
Right.
And so we reworked it, and that's something that I've got printed at a previous place. But now I've been doing some lenses like the Super Famicom one. I've got a Togepi one.
You were in on that charity job too for that Zelda.
Yeah. So that was the Sheikah Slate lens that I designed.
With Joseph, wasn't it?
Yeah, with Joseph Tompkins. And I think Bluish reworked it a bit, and it came out beautifully.
Yeah,
like, I go through Bluish Squirrel for my lens printing because there's nothing better than their honestly great quality.
Yeah, good.
And that's what I've felt the whole time that I've been talking to people, and that's why I'm so happy to like go through him. Like, it may cost a bit extra, but you know that you're getting something that you can be proud of at the end of the day as well. And you don't have to clean the lens or anything like that. You don't have issues, which you can have with other suppliers. But yeah, so I do lenses through Bluish Squirrel. I do my shell design, which I just do up in Illustrator or Photoshop. Most of the time Illustrator as a base, but I do like the prototype in Photoshop. And they got a little template, so I just put it in the template, which is on Playwave's site. And then I buy the shell, and then he'll print it and then send it through. And it actually got listed as well. So that's something that was really cool for me.
Oh, that's neat.
Is that, my designs are now listed on Playwave. And there's the Voltorb one, which I know Nat loves because she's a massive fan of Voltorb.
Yeah.
And this other one is a Galaxy one that I did to complement yesterday's text Galaxy buttons, because they're amazing. I love those buttons so much. And it's just something for me is that having that ability to customize something with parts from other builders is just amazing for me. Like, it's just something that brings me an incredible amount of joy.
Yeah, it is good. It is good. Would say let's move on to say the casting end, because buttons has sort of let me there. Like so that's what you're casting is buttons. I've seen them. And it's like, I guess for me, I don't appreciate the work put into them. And at the same time, when you show me buttons, I'm like, yeah, they look like buttons. But the point is that they don't look like piles of crap, which means that you're doing a really great job. If you hand someone some buttons, they're like, oh, they look pretty good. Yeah, I can see their buttons. That means that in reality, you've nailed it, right? Like, Sam takes it down a whole new path.
Oh man.
And even like, with Neo Customs, there's stuff going on there that's just it's pure alchemy. But you're literally taking like a bottle of goo and turning it into a shape of a button that can then be used in an actual Game Boy. And that's I refer to 3D printing, which we do here, and I don't design the models or anything. And often I've done a little bit of stuff from scratch, but in reality, my daughter and I will sit here and she'll be like, that is so cool. I'm like, man, that's a roll of plastic spaghetti. And in like 2.5 hours, it's a Pokemon ball. And she's like, oh man, that's cool. And I guess you get a similar experience, except that you're putting a lot more of the design into it.
Yeah, well, look, 3D printers are still freaking amazing because they do a lot of modeling themselves and they go through everything. And that's just another level to me is seeing that, I guess, with 3D printing. But for me, resin work is amazing. There's such a huge amount of time sink into them. And I think I first got into it probably about February-ish. And I was talking to Sam from yesterday's tech going, hey, would I be able to buy a model of you? And then I realized now that that's the worst thing that you can ask someone that does casting. Like, it's
why is that?
Something that I feel like it's discrediting the amount of time that goes into doing it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I could just do that and then get them to send it to me and then do all the resin work. But no, for me, the amount of time that goes into them and being able to actually do everything. So, for example, like I get my buttons and I've had amazing support from actually quite a few casters. So Mike from Visual Pixel, Neo from Neo's Tech, and of course Sam from Yesterday's Tech, and they really helped me define this process a bit more. So I use like super fine grit sandpaper on buttons that I've got. Then I'll go through, and it's pretty much just a basic cut and polish technique that goes through on them, and then I'll build up my mold with clay, and pretty much pour the silicon in once it's all looking great. And then after a while, once the silicon's all firmed up and I've got my 2-part mold ready, I pretty much clamp them together. I get a syringe, I inject the actual mold with the resin, and that's what creates a great look, like the injection molding. It's like poor man's injection molding, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and the way you describe it, it's like anything that gives a great result. It's 90% preparation. Yeah, and I guess looking back on how you said, I cut the corner by asking them for a mold, but I guess what you did see was when you used that first mold, because you did use a mold, did you initially? You got from there, and so you saw.
No, I didn't use a mold from them.
Okay,
no.
Because I was going to say, like, you would see the result of this is what a good mold gives me. This is my benchmark.
Well, I saw that from literally just seeing their posts, and now I've got their buttons because I like supporting the other people. I can see, wow, that's what mine should look like, and that's something to strive for.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, my first mold that I did was absolute trash. It's so bad. Same thing for my Gba card. So a few people might have seen that I cast a Gba Card Shell. I love it, but it just doesn't work. So it's something that I needed to put a bit more time in actually developing. And
what doesn't work? Does it just not fit or something? Or
it doesn't fit at all. Okay. I don't even think I did sprues properly on there. So sprues are what you actually use to inject the resin into.
And it comes out looking like an old sort of airplane model kit, and you've got to kind of trim those bits off, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess through there, like, I've now gotten I feel a lot better with my mold making, and that's just because I've been putting hours of time into it. So I did a batch mold of about 5 GBC buttons recently. So that's 5 D-pads, 5 A and B buttons. And it probably took me easily 10 hours just to make the mold. It was a lot of time, and before then it was actually, so that's literally just the mold itself. With the buttons, it took me quite a few hours. I can't even remember now, of actually just polishing them to make them look and feel great. And even then, I've still got a few things that I'm unhappy about that, I'll fix in upcoming molds and stuff like that as well.
That's cool. So are you sort of looking at, like, I can just get buttons going, and then, I mean, I know that Sam is a process of casting some actual shells, some GBC shells and things like that. Is that something you want to aim for, or are you kind of just?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah.
The aim for me. So I've just got into Neo Geo pockets.
Oh yes, I've seen the photo.
So yeah, my Neo Geo.
I've begged you
to
keep it. To keep it just unmodded.
Oh yeah,
I begged you.
Yeah, well, I probably will keep that one unmodded, but I've been looking on like Sendico and stuff like that for really like funky looking ones that may not be working, that kind of thing.
Covered in stickers and shit.
Yeah. So then, if I wanted to, I could always take a picture and scan it for the Restick Retro project. But yeah, for that, I've just gotten into them, and I'd love to be able to cast shells, because there's only 3 options out there,
right?
And it costs about $36 for a complete shell kit for them, which is quite expensive.
Is that lens as well?
Yeah, it does include a lens, but it's a plastic lens, and it's for the OEM model, not like there's some backlights on them now. So
I think there was there was an unlit version. There was a lit.
Yeah. So with that, I would love to be able to produce shells for it, but those shells you can get at the moment incredibly high quality from what I've read. And for me, if I can get to that point, I'll be casting shells in Neo Geo Pocket Color, Probably for, I don't know if I would really do Game Boy shells because I feel like there's enough. I feel there's enough like in production there already,
Mm, yep.
you know.
Yeah, I do.
So for me to do Neo Geo Pocket ones and then do like the buttons, which
Yep.
is what retro modding actually does already. They've got buttons for them, and they look immaculate. They look so fantastic that I'm like, oh man, do I need to do buttons? But I'm like, yeah, well, buttons are fun. Might as well, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I guess like even for yourself, like not everybody that makes knives from raw bits of steel makes
Mm,
knives for other people. So maybe,
mm,
the shell might even end up just a personal creation that
mm,
the whole bespokeness of stuff is just
mm,
insane with Game Boys. When you look at them and there's this whole like mass market of, you just put in Game Boy shell into eBay and
mm.
it's like, really? There's this many options? This is
Yeah,
bonkers. But to get
yeah.
something that only you have is pretty insane. Like I've got the one of my pride and joy thingy bobs is the Best Guard DMG, which
Mm-hmm.
like I was Joseph Tompkins, a man of my own heart. Like I was literally because he kind of had moved on to the Pocket and then working
Mm,
on the GBC. And when I
mm.
sort of said to him, I really want a DMG, he's like, well, I haven't kind of done one for a while. I think it goes okay. I'm like, dude, just shut up and take my money. And, over
Yeah.
that kind of week or two, knowing full well that, and I asked Nat to do out some custom relabels. The DMG just has a serial number, but the serial number
Mm,
was the actual serial number of that DMG
mm-hmm,
kind of
mm-hmm,
before he put it under the laser. So the
mm,
stickers in Aurebesh from Mandalorian stuff, but to kind of just know that this one was made for me
mm, mm,
specifically by him, like that's where I think customers, because that's what I am. I'm a customer,
mm, mm,
and
mm,
when you're looking out there for people that want to give you money for stuff, the
mm,
customer wants that feeling of this is for me.
mm.
And things like your customizer and the ability to make buttons and shells and stuff. Like if someone says, I've got this beat up Neo Geo Pocket, man, I would love this like super duper British racing green shell. You're like, man,
Mm-hmm.
I can do that. That's a
Yeah, yeah,
that's a that's a both they are a blessing and a burden right there for you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
I've got the same for my pocket that I've got done because that so you've got your Beskar shell in the same package. I got that gold pocket with a
oh,
Mario design engraved on it
yeah,
from
yeah,
Joseph,
yeah,
and I love that, man. That is the nicest thing that the nicest custom shell that I've got. I reckon it's
yeah.
just special, because it's just for me,
Yeah, that's
and
exactly right.
you know.
Just for you.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Mm. So mm, so the casting, how is it coming along? How do you feel that it's working? Because I guess kind of like I was sort of talking to you earlier on, it's like when we spoke to Mike, Visual
Mm,
Pixel, Mike's kind of like,
mm,
if you're listening, Mike, don't get me wrong, but it sort of feels a bit like Mike kind of pours stuff into an ice cube tray, the shape of a button, and so gives
mm,
it a shake and hopes for the best. He doesn't use pressure pots or anything. And then
mm,
we've got, yesterday's tech, and they're like full on at the very other end of the spectrum. And I guess you're kind of in the
mm,
middle there, trying to sort of
mm,
creep up.
mm,
How do
mm,
you feel your learning curve is going? Your whole learning versus reward. Are you
mm.
getting what you would want to buy? Is that kind of where you're at? Or you're like, I've got so much other stuff I really need to kind of get sorted here.
Yeah, well, I definitely. Well, we all start in the same place.
Yes.
So for Visual Pixel Co, I started the exact same, but he's got an incredibly better process than I do. Well,
Right.
when I first started, because he's angled his in a way so that the air bubbles can escape.
Right.
And he's not using that pressure pot to crush the bubbles so that they're escaping.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, the learning curve is incredibly steep,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely at a point where I would personally buy my buttons. I'm quite fussy with everything that I do get, and it is something that I would probably buy. And I've done a lot of testing. I'm actually doing some testing for David from Nintendo DIY at the moment
Right.
for some pink ones, which are dubbed Strawberry Milkshake.
Yum.
Yeah, it's yeah, right. It's part of the forbidden sweets range that I'm kind of, rolling out. But it's definitely getting there. I would love to be able to say I'm as good as yesterday's tech at one point, but I don't think that's going to be for a while because he's been working on his craft for such a long time that it's going to probably take me double that, if not more. I just don't have the time to absolutely, I guess, focus on just that, you
Mm,
know?
mm. Yeah, I think those
Yeah.
guys do it more or less full time.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
I guess the bottleneck, much like it was when I spoke to Sam, was the pressure pot itself. It's a bit like you've only
hmm
kind of got one oven that cooks a
hmm
loaf of bread at a time,
hmm
and you got to
hmm
kind of wait till that bread's baked, try it out.
mm,
If the bread fails and it's just burnt dough in the bottom, then like, oh,
mm,
well, I'm going to waste my time, but I feel like
hmm
I've got to rethink this. So that's the
mm.
challenge for you, right? Having that one pressure pot.
Yeah. And I guess definitely the first thing that was the most challenging thing was converting it from a paint pot because a pressure pot is literally just a paint pot.
Mm,
That's changed into it. So I had to do all these conversions
mm,
and I ended up like losing my patience, I think, on it because I had to use plumber's tape on everything to try and make it airtight. I was
right.
like, oh man, this has been like a week of me doing this. Let's find out if there's anything else I can use. And I
Yeah.
found like this adhesive that cures when there's no air present. So that
Right.
means that there's no air escaping or anything like that as well. So I put that in. It took about 24 hours and everything was airtight. And
Oh,
it was pretty
gorgeous.
good from there. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is hard at the moment in winter because it's
Right.
getting to that point where if your cast fails, because it takes about 2 days at the moment because it's so cold,
Right.
to do your cast. So I leave it in for 2 days, just be careful. And one time mine came out like melty goop. It was disappointing, but I learned from that.
So when you put it in the pot, do you
Mm.
you put it in the pot, you pressurize the pot, and then it just
hmm
stays pressurized?
Yeah, so I put it in about 50 psi, and it stays there for 2 days,
Right.
at that pressure.
Right. And that really just gives it time to push all. I mean, I guess in theory you could maybe kind of release the pressure, but you're like, just don't touch it. Just let it sit there and you, nobody move kind of thing.
Well, pretty much. It's you could release the pressure, but I just worry too much that because it's cold and it still hasn't actually had the time to cure, that
Right.
bubbles could be reintroduced. So I'm like, oh, it's not worth it. Let's just leave it be.
Mm,
And
mm.
yeah, because that'd be a waste of time. That would suck if you've
It
gone
would
in and
suck.
spent 2 days and then it didn't come out nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sort of, I don't really understand how resin works, but I'm surprised that the
Mm,
cold weather makes it worse, or like makes it a
mm,
longer process. For
mm,
me, I
mhm,
just assumed that if it was really hot, then that would kind of
mm,
slow down the curing. But there we
mm.
go. We learn something about this casting all the time because everybody's giving it a solid hard nudge.
Yeah, well, it lights probably about mid 20s to late 20s in
Right.
degrees Celsius. But a way to get around that is actually I get a bucket of hot water
Yep.
and I put parts A and B just in the bottle in there, warming up for about 15 minutes.
Right.
And then afterwards, both are incredibly fluid as well. Like
Okay.
they're easy to move about.
Yep.
And then it actually pre-starts that curing process a bit for you as well.
Mm. So what do you do during, because I've been to your house and it's just sort of out
Mm,
in your garage,
mm, mm,
attached to the house.
mhm,
And we live here in North Queensland. Well, I guess it's north. We live in Queensland, Australia, which is north of the country.
mm,
And
mm,
for you and I, it wouldn't be uncommon during summer for it to get up to sort of 35 degrees
mm,
Celsius.
mhm, mhm,
So if you're aiming for that sort of mid 20s, and maybe you
mm,
haven't had to face this yet because you haven't been through a solid summer, what's the
mm.
plan on sort of keeping it in that 20? You're going to put it in an esky or something for the day, or what's your plan?
I reckon cross my fingers and hope it works.
I'll see you later. Uh,
Yeah, just a bit of optimism.
yeah, yeah, and maybe it's a matter of changing the part mix or something. Maybe I
Mm,
mean, they're down south in South
mm,
Australia. It gets quite cold down there,
mm,
so I guess he's had to sort of adjust his methods to suit his climate. So
mhm,
yeah,
mhm, mhm.
you just need to find a couple of the Californian casters and See what they get away with. Hey.
Yeah, I'll just give them a quick ask, just give them a message and say what's going on, man.
And have you tried different, I guess, brands of the resin, or are you sort of just following a few people sort of said this one's been pretty good for me, and you're in Australia, there's only so much we can get hold of anyway because we're in the bottom of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I literally just looked online. I was like, oh, resin Australia. And
Yeah,
I
right.
found out one that had good reviews, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll use that. And I was pretty much stuck with it for quite a while.
That's cool. I've seen your buttons. They look legit. You can't tell the difference, honestly. Like, you cannot tell the difference. It's a pretty impressive craft. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you.
I guess with the all this sort of modding and stuff, like what, I guess passing on some knowledge to other people that might have, because I guess you're sort of somewhat, I mean, some people have been doing this for, 5, 6, 7 years, and some people a couple of years, but it's probably, it seems to me over the last probably year or so is when you've sort of gone, well, I'm going to mod a few, you have an option where people can send their original Game Boy to you and then you'll clean it up. And one thing I was looking at before, which is pretty rad, and this is just something you had, was a pink pocket, which was probably your words, I was incredibly yellowed, and you brought that back to just looking absolutely Mickey Mouse and brand new. So good on you, because I love to see pockets in good shape. But
thank you.
Yeah, it's good work. What do you sort of say to people what are the warnings for people that are kind of like, I'm gonna, because everybody sort of goes, I'm gonna buy a couple, flip them and stuff. I mean, you've got a photo on your Instagram of a table and there's 61.
Yeah.
That's a serious investment, mate. Like, I talk to you and anybody else, and I'm always trying to buy front boards and this and that and the other, and you guys just hang on to your stuff because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of investment, and you give one to someone else. Next thing you're like, I'm trying to just really do this. What's your advice and warnings getting into it?
It's definitely a lot of an upfront cost. There was a lot that I put into it. I guess just to do what you love, because if you're not doing what you love, then you're just gonna find it like monotonous and another job. And at the end of the day, you don't want it to be like that. So I work full time, and my main job is IT. So I work with computers all day, and when I get home, I actually spend a lot of my spare time working on the business, and that's designing stuff. I've got a customer actually at the moment, like a client that I'm working with at the moment, and have just made him a Bulbasaur lens. So it's got Game Boy Advance in the middle, Bulbasaur's on either side. It looks amazing. I'm really keen for it to come out, and I'm printing it through Bluish Squirrel. And I just love that I'm able to do something and send it to a client and say, hey, what do you think of this? And this person came back to me and was like, dude, that is amazing. A guy in his 30s shouldn't be so excited for what you've just made, but it's just made me so happy. And that was amazing to me, because it's just amazing to be able to bring joy to people by doing something I love. I guess the whole thing is, as I said, do it because you love it, not because you want to make money, because at the end of the day, you don't make a huge amount. And you might break things that are like 20 years old. You need to know how to work on things. And my first fixes and repairs was probably about 5 years ago on DMGs, and it was just fixing dead pixel lines, just the vertical ones, and going through and doing that. And that's how I taught myself soldering. I taught myself through doing that. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, have a look at some videos on how to solder, and flux is your best friend. Do not try and melt something without that, and use lead-based solder. Sorry, lungs, but I just make sure I've got a fan and my window open or hold my breath.
There's other options. There are little extractors with filters and
absolutely.
And you can always just kind of buy a soldering iron, and if you go down to in Australia, we have on those electronic stores. Not sure if there's much in there, or JCar, and you can buy like a breadboard or a bit of like practice PCB, bag full of resistors, and just go hard, just bang them out, and just get a feel for what a proper solder joint should look like and feel like, and all those little kits. It's you just get amongst today.
Actually, there is something that I did do growing up. there was a little radio kit that my mum bought me. That
Oh,
was like a DJ FM thing that you could kind of hack your local airwaves,
oh
and
yeah,
you could put your own show. So I used to be like, DJ Tris, play these
yeah.
tunes. It was real lame.
Coming to you from my mum's basement.
Coming to you from my mum's house.
Yeah, it's so good.
But that was like a soldering kit that I did together, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, honestly, just do it because you love it,
yeah,
and you can't go wrong. Like the moment you start hating it, you have to reevaluate everything. And I've got to points where I'm like, this is really overwhelming. I've got all this stuff to do, and I'm like, I love it though. I would change nothing in the world for this feeling that I'm having right now because it's
yeah,
such an incredible hobby, you
yeah.
know?
There's something about creating, isn't there? And refurbing, especially when you get something that, like looking at that picture there of your 61 that you got at that particular shipment. And some of those are in bad shape, but inside is still the heart and soul of the Game Boy. And some of those shells are probably still in really good condition. Taking those things that are no longer loved and discarded and really reusing them is I was talking to someone today and talking about like what if we've run out, and then I sort of said, I spoke to Greg Farrell, Game Changer Mods, and he's like, we're not running out, man. There's millions of these little suckers out there. Just relax.
There's people hoarding them, I bet. If anything, they've bought up a lot of Game Boys and are waiting to release them back in.
Yeah, well, there's this dude here's got 61 on the table, so he's probably one of them. I think the reality really is it's not that they're not still out there. It's just they're just getting so priced where we're kind of like, it's kind of hard to justify now. Like I've got some shells and stuff on the way, and damn it, I just need a beta GBC. I just need a beta. Tell me, I don't care if the lens has got dog vomit on it and it's covered in blood from a murder scene. And you cannot get anything here in Australia. If you just want to buy one GBC that works, $100.
Yeah.
And if you're buying a custom shell with a lens, you're still kind of coming in under that $200 as a hobbyist. But and I'm afraid to do what you've done with Sendico and things like that, because I'm like, I don't know. That's a massive. I know what you would have roughly paid for 61 Game Boys. And it's a lot of work to put them all together, have Sendico deal with it, roll the dice on the taxes and shipping from different precincts and stuff. It's a big job.
It was actually just one lot. So that 61 there was one lot that I was bidding against someone at about 2 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
I want to say. And I went through Buyee, and I do not recommend Buyee at all because the amount of fees that I had to pay was uncanny. It was like they're robbing me because it came up, probably to almost half the price of the bundle.
Yeah, right.
And I'm talking couple grand easy.
Oh, really?
With everything. Yeah.
Oh,
it was like everything total was a couple grand at least.
Wow.
And a lot of those dirty shells that you see there, I've actually clean them up. So I've got a bag of shells. I pretty much put them through my ultrasonic cleaner, and so I've got buttons for my casting, which is amazing. But I put them through my ultrasonic cleaner, and then if the shell's really just grimy or it's yellowed a lot, I actually retrobrite it. So I use like 20-volt hydrogen peroxide, I want to say, in a gel form. Put it over that, wrap it in cling wrap, but make sure it's nice and tight and not going to dry out, and I pop it outside in the sun. And that's how a lot of them have been revived, is literally just because of the sun.
I think I've actually had this conversation about the faceplate on our GameCubes. Mine's faded, and I was like, what do you know about that? And you said, I could do that. And I'm like, you do yours first, and then we'll see.
That's what I was saying.
I'll
probably do mine first and then see how that goes, but I got to buy more.
No worries. Yeah, all right, buddy. One thing I did want to bring up was Diadius. I haven't played it yet, but I went on isma.ca, I think it was, and I gave them money. I haven't played it yet, but you were just yabbering to the point where you kind of didn't at the library that day. You didn't even want to talk to us. You're like, sorry, I'm just playing Diadius here. I've already got.
I felt so awkward.
I've got 6 of the different endings, and I'm here. I think it's those sort of situations are really good because you're just kind of in a room with people that have the same thing in common, and it's a bit like it's fine just to sit there and do that for a few minutes but then we brought on Bomberman and you had to show us how good you were. Until your D-pad went wonky.
Until my D-pad.
Yeah, that's right. There it is. That's exactly what my D-pad.
Wait, no, that's my D-pad. Yeah, there you go.
It was brutal. Yeah.
Wait until that's a ringtone or something.
Yeah. So Diadius, you've seen a bunch of the endings. Obviously, don't spoil it, but tell us all about it.
Oh my days!
As a buyer player, tell us all about it.
So I should have pre-ordered it. So this was a game that Spaceport Interactive was doing physical copies for, and I just missed out. And I was like, damn! I got back into Game Boy collecting after the initial pre-order stage, and then when they went up the other day, I was asleep and just missed out just because of time zone differences.
Wow.
So I actually reached out to the creator and I was like, hey man, would it be chill if I did my own personal fan copy of this game? And they're like, please show me pictures once it's all done.
So
I was like, heck yeah, that's awesome. So I started with the cartridge. And I, bought the ROM from their site. I got the special edition, and I actually got a cartridge from Insight.Gadgets, and they produce a lot of incredibly well-crafted cartridges that I've now got a bunch of, and I flashed Dedius on there. Pretty much from there, I went ahead and I did a lot of the art for when I say make the art, I used the assets that came with the special edition.
Right.
And I just put them on a box, made them look nice, and my next door neighbor's a printer. So I was like, hey man, would you be able to print this out for me on this? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. I was like,
that's
sweet.
awesome.
Yeah, and so I've made a manual since then. I haven't got that one printed yet, but as soon as it's printed, I'm going to put it up, and that will be my finished copy of Dedius, bar a few stickers that I want to have out and a label for the cartridge.
Right.
But the game is fantastic.
What's the gist of the game in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, the world's ending. And you've had some sort of really strange prophetic style, like a prophecy's happened, or you've had some sort of vision in your head that someone's going to come and claim back your lives. It's pretty gruesome. It's definitely very gruesome, because they go through the thing they've given you. He's provided you with flesh, and now he's going to take it back. And I was like, "Oh,
this is not Hello Kitty,
an adult's game." Yes, this is not G-rated for sure.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic. Like you play, so the protagonist is this young boy that's had this crazy dream, and he goes around the town, and you can go talk to the different townsfolk, and you find out that the other kids have been having the same dream.
This is the X-Files episode.
Like different kids having the same dream. Absolutely. You've just got the theme song playing in the background.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's so much to do in it. And I think the first game, first playthrough for me, took a couple hours, but that was a couple hours of intense fun for I sent them like $5-10 for that. And that game is fantastic. It's done so well for what it is, and it's great to see a game coming out in it was released in 2019. It's great to see a new Game Boy game.
Yeah, as you obviously don't mind an RPG or two, but as a kind of a game, like you said, you played through it for 2 hours for one ending. Would you say it's still something that even people that aren't really into, I guess, hardcore RPGs could still enjoy?
Yeah, definitely people could enjoy it. It's honestly more of an adventure, than anything. It's just like a thriller / adventure game.
Okay.
Where you go around and interact with everything, and you pick up items. It's a lot about just talking to people and wandering around.
Yeah.
And I guess like one of the things that I heard, I can't remember who said it on your cast, but they was talking about just sleeping the whole time, because that's what I remember saying. I was like, oh yeah, I wonder what happens if I sleep all 3 days. And I slept all 3 days, and then the world came to an end, and it's just you just wrapped up in your blanket going, okay, yeah, this is chill.
Oh really? Oh my goodness. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. All right. I've got a few kind of weekends where I'm going to be here on my own, and my wife and daughter are heading away, and maybe I should sit down with it one night and just, a couple of quiet beers and just play it. until I get through. Is you reckon like
Mhm.
the average Joe could probably, if you just keep chugging through a couple of hours for a playthrough, that sounds pretty bloody good.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's so
Okay.
fantastic as a game.
Yeah. So those that are listening, if you haven't yet, go over. You can head over to, you can see them on Instagram, iz.ma, Isma, and then follow the links to Spacebot. You can just Google up Diadius and you can find a ROM page and you basically just make a donation. It's pretty great because when you look at the page, it says download now, followed by the words, excuse me, name your own price. And that's that's the sort of thing that makes you want to pay more, in my opinion, because that's not someone profiting off our addiction for Game Boy stuff. That's someone that has a love and it's like, it'd be really great if you could help me put a pizza on the table for the work I did because I just did it anyway. So have a good time with it. Groovy. I'm going to do that. It's going to go to my calendar. Yeah. Look, as we've talked this evening, it's this evening for you and I like to keep this timeless, but the reality is it is. We've sort of mentioned a fair few names. I'll put all that in the show notes and everything, So I always try and find someone that I like to sort of, back, and I give you guys, the guests, this opportunity to sort of look at something, someone, that you like, go, this is someone I really like to back, or these are people that have really helped me out. The person that I'm kind of going to talk about on this particular episode is, and I've said this before, it's not Game Boy related, but it's Arto Vision 3D. Now I will put this in the show notes, and you can quickly, while you're listening, go to it, or you can just listen to what I say. So basically, this person takes like a game scene and then sort of splits it into 2 to 3 layers and then puts that in a small picture frame. It's pretty freaking great. Like, I'm looking at, say, for example, Ghosts and Goblins, and there's sort of the glass has been printed with kind of like some spooky stuff, and then there's sort of like a layer which is the actual printing image of the game, and then because there was like a platform behind it, that's another level in. So this is just an artist that obviously has a passion for the sort of things that we're all into, which is, retro gaming. There's a few other non-gaming sort of pieces of work there, but yeah, I would highly recommend go and check out that webpage and that Instagram and see if there's something you like and maybe help an artist and put a pizza on their table for doing what they love to do. And the opportunity now for you, Tristan, to mention anybody you haven't already, or repeat your words, or just say I love you all. I don't like to ambush people, but I'd like to give you the opportunity to reach out. Shoot, mate.
Thanks. So I guess on this one, I'd like to say, massive shout out to Neo's Customs. Neo is such a friendly person. They have been someone that I've been able to talk to about so many different things, and has been incredibly helpful for everything. They actually even sent a care package for me recently, with some chocolate covered coffee beans that I'm also sending some stuff down to Nat on their behalf.
Yep.
But yeah, they're such a friendly person, and it's honestly so lovely to have someone that you only know online, and have them in the community and be like, you're like a long lost mate. Like, I reckon it's just amazing,
Yeah.
to be able to have that kind of connection with people. And of course, like meeting our little Brisbane gang of Game Boy enthusiasts or just retro enthusiasts. Like, I want to say, is it Michael_C?
Yeah, Mike.
That's Mike's.
Yeah, Mike from the Played Up podcast. Yep.
Yeah, and Gavin from Nostech, and Will from Baron Prizeman, and then we've also just
we like Will. He gave us whiskey.
Oh man, that is really nice. It's absolutely fantastic on there, and our just little group that got together for that was incredibly fun. And something else, like, people like Natalie the Nerd has helped me out with my soldering when I wanted to replace a USB-C port on my SPs, which I now do to every single model that I send.
Yeah.
She was incredibly gracious to help me through that process. and that's honestly so appreciative because they don't need to, but
No.
they do it out of the goodness of their heart to show people and teach people more. And I've started using my multimeter more and learning how to use that because of her.
Yeah.
With everything I do, Sam and Kelsey from Yesterday's Tech, both
Yeah.
amazing beings. Kelsey as Gloom Reigns.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting people to talk to.
Yeah.
Just people that I could call friends. I love these people that I could definitely call friends. My, Julianne, so Gameboy.777.
Yeah.
She sent me this amazing Game Boy Advance SP shell, which is just the best. That's actually Nara makes games. So Anthony was like, you need to make that into a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle build. And I'm like, oh damn, I have to. And so now that's what that's becoming.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And we've got the Restick Retro crew. So that's myself, Next Stop Please, so NXT Stop Please. Then we've also got TL Hand Modding, so Trey.
Yeah.
We've got Plume Customs, we've got VisualPixel.co, Mike. And we've also just got, I think it's Retrovise, I want to say. Let me just double check that. I'm pretty sure it's Retrovise. But yeah, I'm just so helpful. Yeah, it's Retrovise. I thought I'd double check that. And yeah, Beer and Pixels, Beer und Pretzels. Yeah, Pretzels. Mike, so he's been working on that CNC wood Game Boy shell, which is fascinating. Seeing that work done, and honestly, there's just so many people out there that I am incredibly grateful for. That if I miss anyone, please don't be offended. It's just sometimes I just can't think. But I just feel incredibly blessed to have these people in my life and being able to talk to them every day, and incredibly helpful the whole way. It's something that's really nice for me. Oh, another shout out. So we've already said Joseph Tompkins, an amazing person. Congratulations on their recent wedding, because that was blessed. Right, that was just so sweet. Of course, David from Nintendo DIY. They're a legend. They're working on a Pokemon Pink for me that we're doing a trade for. I always butcher this, but Takezo Retoro. Lovely person. And there's just so many people out there that I'd probably miss. Another person, T from Peg City 8-Bit. Such a bro. I actually got their recent shirt that they've done a pre-order for, because I'm like, I want to have a modder's wardrobe. So if you're a modder that has some shirts that are coming out or hoodies, please let me know, because I would love to have a modder's wardrobe. But yeah, there's just so many people out there that are just fantastic and really helpful, and I couldn't be more appreciative of them.
And every day you find someone and you kind of look at their Instagram and you're like, there's another person that I really would like to know more about and would love to kind of work with, and how can I give you money for this, or whatever. It's you could go very broke in this community. Stop doing all this amazing stuff, people. You're killing me.
Oh yeah, mate. That's a mood, because it's definitely easy to spend too much.
Yeah, and I guess though it feels better because you're spending it, like the money's going. Like for example, if someone buys a shell from you or a custom land, like the money's going to you. It's not going to one of the kind of like mass-produced overseas kind of, whether it be from Asia or whatever. Like, and that's fine. It's not an Asian thing, but it's nice to buy, from the local guy. And like Craig at retrogamestore.com is this podcast sponsor, but I could probably save a few bucks. It would take me 3 weeks longer with the AliExpresses and things like that. But to help someone that's in your area, I have a friend who lives in Germany, and he's like, oh, I tried to do a Q5 in a pocket and it didn't work out, blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, just jump on Instagram, look around. He was near Stuttgart, and he's like, oh, I found someone. The dude fixed it in like 4 days and sent it back to me. Like, so you're helping people like yourself that love doing it, and you're facilitating the ability for that person to go on and do more. They're also learning. His problem was a little peculiar, and the guy's like, yeah, it did take me a bit, but I worked it out, so look after your local. Obviously we don't have a lot of local in Australia. If we're in Europe or America, it'd be very different. We have a lot more stuff on our shelves.
Absolutely.
But wherever you are, so look after your local, look around, you'll be surprised who can help you out.
And I guess one thing that I did forget, this, I wouldn't be here without the support of my partner. As I said, like, honestly, this is all because of her that I've really gotten into this and being really grateful for. And
are you hoping she listens to this
along the way? Oh, she's actually in the room right now.
Oh, okay. She's like, she's poking you. She's like, don't forget to mention me. You're a lucky boy.
Nah, not at all. But
that's great.
Shout out to sweet.life.of.harmony. She is the love of my life, and I couldn't be more appreciative of the support I get from them.
No worries. I think I definitely my wife and my daughter's more like me. She collects, but my wife really does allow this, because when you're in a relationship, it just, like, I remember talking to Kelly, next up please, and she's like, of all the stuff that Kelly does, she's only got, I think, half a dozen Game Boys out, because they live in a small unit. And I'm like, oh God, I can't own a Game Boy and have it not out. And I have mid-20s. So they're just, along with, you've been here, and it's just, there's other stuff. And it's like, we're really fortunate when our partner's like, you know what, buddy, if that makes you happy, that's fine. Just that's fine.
Just keep it to your room. And don't
that's right.
Out of the room.
Yeah, that's right.
I think slowly I'm going to try and do the whole thing where it's like sneaky Game Boy, and I think that should be some sort of hashtag, right? So like a Game Boy that you put around the house that your partner hasn't noticed. Hashtag sneaky Game Boy.
I've got news for you.
Behind a tree or something.
I've got news for you, Tris. She'll notice.
I don't know. Just put something else there to kind of like counter get it. So
really?
Or just got a decoy Game Boy, and then just put like a little one somewhere.
You put some chocolates next to it. So, chocolates.
Yeah, just a big bouquet of flowers or something like that, and then you've got your Game Boy sitting randomly somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. What's that for? You'll find out. Awesome, buddy.
Nothing.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing. All right, mate. Look, I really appreciate your time. I've been really looking forward to sitting down and talking to you. I know you. I wanted other people to kind of get to know you a bit more. And everybody sort of sees, I get messages from people saying it's so good to put a voice to someone who I've only been able to kind of watch through Instagram and chat with. And I'm sure a lot of people have a better understanding of how passionate you are, how committed you are. And yet you're still just one of us. You have a love for the Game Boy, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, man. Because it's something that I've loved listening, is being able to exactly just hear people. Like, I had no idea what half of the people sounded like, and it's been something that I'm able to listen to and solder and do all my modding, and I love it, man. It's really nice.
I reflect on I think the first time we met, because you said to come over, and you're like, sure, and I was actually just at the end of a podcast, and you got, and I was like with the person, and I said, hang on, someone's just knocking at my door, because we'd finished and we just sort of chatting afterwards. I said, oh, it's Tristan. And I shook your hand. I'm like, here, come in here. I sat you down, and on the Zoom was Peg City, and you're like, what? It's like, yeah, I know. Yeah. It's just, the world just gets, if we just pull it all together, it can just be a really nice place for us to be, and just ignore the other rubbish that's going on.
Absolutely. And I still remember, like, I was beaming, and I'm beaming now thinking of that memory, because that was just like so cool. Like, oh my God, it's T.
It's that guy.
And it's just nice to put like a face and a voice
to
someone, it's just lovely.
It is lovely. All right, buddy. Thank you so much for your time. You and I will be in touch. There's no doubt about that. Come the 20th, you bring your GameCube controller and show us how double dash works.
Oh yeah, I'm ready to school.
Oh, there's some words there. All right, no worries. All right, bud. We'll catch you soon.
Worries. See you then, mate. And thank you very much for having me.
Yep. Okay, bud. Bye.
No worries. Bye.